Advocacy. What does that mean to you? Have you ever been in a place in your life where something has come up and you want to really, really advocate for it, but you kind of back down? Or did you charge forward and say, you know what, I'm going to advocate for this? Today, we're going to be bringing up our next guest, which is Teresa Dawn Johnson. And she is an advocate. Let me pull off the book of No Problem Parenting is the book we're talking about today. And Teresa's story is in this book. And Teresa, the chapter title of yours is No Problem Parenting, Advocacy. First, welcome to the book. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I would love for you to share with us, like, what does advocacy mean in your world?
Well, for both, I have two sons, and the oldest has autism and the youngest one has ADHD. And I advocated for both of them when they were in school. And as far as my oldest son, it started right at 9 months old, because we started going to speech therapy, which the insurance company didn't even want to have it. They're like, why do you need speech therapy for a 9-month-old? And thankfully, Easter Seals came on board to help us with that, because their dad's insurance wouldn't cover it. And so I was able to get that help through Easter Seals. And I learned, as well as my son learned along the way, what those therapies look like, because I had no idea that babies had speech, that baby babble, that's their early development of speech. And
that's what I was going to ask you before you go on there. I was going to ask you, like, how did you know that speech therapy was a thing? So at what point in this journey did you make this discovery, the baby babble? Like, I love that title, baby babble is speech. I sometimes feel like I do a bunch of baby babble now.
Well, there was a nurse that was concerned. We went for wellness checks when Sean was a baby, and she noticed that he wasn't making eye contact. And then I was holding him, and she says, I want him to put this block in this cup. And he didn't know what anything was going on. And so then we had him evaluated, and the first therapies that we went to was speech therapy and then occupational therapy. And there was a little bit of, he didn't walk until he was 22 months old, and we were going to physical therapy. And we knew that he was delayed, and he wasn't actually diagnosed with autism until he was 2 years old. So I'm very grateful that we were going to therapies even before the official diagnosis. And in the beginning, it was just called developmental delays.
Yeah, I have a friend whose son has developmental delays, developmental disabilities, the different phrasings that they call it. And so what was that point that you said, I've got to advocate for Sean, because, things are a little different for him. And at what point did you realize that you needed to, like, step up and be that advocate for him?
When he started preschool, I felt like the teachers were telling me what they were going to do, rather than listening to what I thought he needed. And I honestly hadn't met any other families except maybe 2 local families where I live. And the strangest places to meet them was the grocery store, but they could tell by Sean's behavior that he had autism. And then that's how I got to know them. And it wasn't until he was 9 years old that I got an invitation in my son's backpack to come to a zoo event that was put on by a local autism group. And that's when I started getting involved in knowing, there's things that I can go to a support group and get my questions answered, and other parents that, are going through the same journey that I'm going through, that we can support one another and get help. So it was very nice. Yeah.
Those people that entered your life in the grocery store, like, a very random place, right? Like, was it random or not? I know that, you are a believer, Jesus. And so was that a random encounter, or was it one that he put in your path? Like, what's your thought on that?
Looking back on it, I don't know. All I know is that, this lady, I got to know her very well. Her son's like maybe 10, 15 years older than mine. And she said, I didn't mean anything by it that your son has autism. I'm coming to ask you because my son also does, and then I got to know her and her husband. She actually made it a career where she could make homemade candies, and so she could actually be with him in the afternoon when he was done with his day program. So she was able to do a career around him. And then I knew her husband as the former chief of police and the mayor, and I just got to know them. And then I found out later that my uncle went to high school with the dad. I was like, oh, isn't that neat?
Right.
So I I don't know why we have these encounters, but yes, I would think that it was a God thing. But it made me felt like even knowing these two families before I came across until Sean was 9, I felt a little less alone because I felt like I was the only one going through this, like talking to other parents and things like that. I was like, well, I'm sorry that you're going through that, but when you have someone that you can talk to that's going through the same thing that you're going through, you don't feel as alone.
And what's your thought on that? Because with autism, it's not that it's a new thing, not by any means. It's been around for, don't know how long ago the first diagnosis was of it, but it's become more and more common as far as more understanding that that's what, different I don't even know, diagnoses that, people have. And when Sean was first born, he was not diagnosed with autism. Is that correct?
Correct. He was diagnosed around the age of 2.
Around the age of 2. And so what, did he have different diagnoses prior to being diagnosed with autism? No, they just didn't know what the delay was about.
When he was born in 95, and back then there wasn't a whole lot of resources and knowledge, as much as there is now, which I'm glad and grateful for, that there is more available now. And I think it's because of parents, of children of my son's age, is 28, that we were able to help. There's been laws passed that helps, I believe in the state of Illinois up until age 12. It's a state mandate that insurance provide behavioral therapy up until age 12. Unfortunately, Sean was 14 when that law was passed, but it takes a while for these wheels to get into motion, for things to be taking place to help our kids.
And it takes people who are advocates like you in order to get those wheels moving. What is it about you? I mean, have you always been like this kind of person who advocates for things and for people? Have you always been that way, or is this something that was newly developed later in life?
Well, when I was in high school, what the strangest thing is called Future Homemakers of America. I was just, volunteering to do weird things. And then in college, I got, it's not enough just to go to class and to go do a college job. I think I'll volunteer to do this, to volunteer to do that, and so I guess it was in me to want to be a helper, because when my son was going to speech therapy when he was younger and the insurance wouldn't pay for it, she's like, well, Teresa, what are you doing other than, taking care of Sean? At this point, he's, 9, 10 months old. And I said, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom for right now. And she says, well, in order for us to raise funds for Easter seals, it would be nice if you would be able to talk to our local groups, and get money donations, and even go to the grocery store, when they want to hand Easter seals a check. And I'm like, sure, why not? And believe you me, I'm very, very shy back then. And I'm like, I'm going to get up in front of the Kiwanis and the Lions Club and talk about autism. Okay. And I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about, but sure, let's give it a whirl,
Yeah, good for you. Just diving in, right? I mean, they had the confidence in you and you adopted that confidence and you went and did it. So why don't you share for those who don't know what Easter Seals is, and what is their mission? What do they do?
to be quite honest, I don't remember Easter seals. They just help people with disabilities, and it's all people with all disabilities. When my younger son, I was noticing not only did he have an attention issue, but I thought, well, maybe he has a variance of autism. And so we went to the Easter Seals place in Bloomington, Illinois, and he went through a long day series of testing. And my younger son did not care for it. He was rather upset that he was diagnosed with it. And I said, all I'm trying to do is help you out at school. I'm not here to put labels on you. You know, if it helps you, you know, get extra help at school, that's fine. But I said, if you don't want to accept that, you don't have to, you know. And there's a lot of people that put a lot of emphasis on something like that. I was just diagnosed with ADHD last December, had it all my life, but my younger son has ADHD and focus issues and that. I waited a whole year to be evaluated because I was put on a waiting list. But when I found out, it's like, it makes sense. And I would spend 4 hours a night doing homework in high school just to get on the honor roll. Wow. It took a lot of work for me in college to even graduate with a C average. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. I get distracted very easily. And there were other things about ADHD, the calendar and things like that. And as I became a young mom and the things started coming home in the backpack, I got even more overwhelmed. And I just kept going with it, but I didn't understand what was happening. I think they're saying right now there's a lot of people getting late diagnoses of ADHD. And even with my younger son, I advocated him a 504 plan. It's the littlest things about being able to take 10 minutes out of a study hall to clean out his locker and to take his assignment notebook to the study hall teacher and say, here, look, I filled it out. Mm-hmm. That's all he needed to keep on track. But it's just little helper things that we need to be able to help them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. How do you
do that?
Go ahead.
I helped both of my sons do that. I want his fourth grade teacher for my younger son, he kept losing his homework and having to redo it. And his teacher flat out said, well, I think he's doing this on purpose. I said, I don't think so. I don't think somebody would purposely lose their homework to have to redo it over again. And my younger son is very highly intelligent. And then when he went to the fifth grade, his teacher let him just be the messiest person ever. And his desk was a hot mess. And then when he got to junior high, he had nothing in place to help him. He was failing all his courses. And a lot of it just had to do with the fact that he couldn't organize and do the things, not that he was unintelligent. And so I just think that as parents, whether they have dyslexia, Down syndrome, autism, ADHD, you have to be able to help them as much as they can. And I've also been told if the individual themselves can advocate for themselves, that's even better.
Yeah, I guess as parents, teaching them, so you advocate for them, but then teach them how to advocate for themselves. And oh my gosh, our time is up already. I can't believe this. That was like the fastest 15 minutes ever. Well, we're talking about the book, No Problem Parenting. Please go check it out. Teresa's chapter in that book is called No Problem Parenting Advocacy. You can get your copy at actiontakerspublishing.com/NPP. When you head over there, you're going to see a bunch of free gifts from the authors as well. Go cash in on those free gifts, some really, really great gifts over there. So, thank you so much for being part of this, Teresa. Really appreciate having you in my life. And, just keep advocating because you're doing the work that you need to be doing in order to get the results that you're looking for. And you're doing such great work helping other people out there in the world. So I want to thank you so much. And oh my gosh, our time is up. Teresa, I hate to cut it short, but we gotta.
No problem.
Let's hit that number 1 with this book and let's have a lot of fun. So everybody go get your copy of No Problem Parenting today. Thank you so much for tuning in.